Good evening, our dear viewers, and welcome to this exclusive interview with His Excellency Ambassador William Lacey Swing, the Director General of the International Organization of Migration. Welcome to our interview.
Thank you very much.
First, I would like to thank you for giving us this chance, to do this interview, and we welcome you to Kuwait, and we wish you a pleasant stay here.
Thank you. It's really always nice to be back.
Yeah. Your Excellency, could you begin by telling us a little bit about the organization and its goals and purposes in summary?
Yes, we were founded in 1951, about 63 years ago, alongside UNHCR, the High Commissioner for Refugees, basically to address the ravages of World War II by evacuating people from Europe to immigration countries where they could start their life anew. And we've continued over many years to expand with various regional conflicts so that we've now become a global organization with 155 member states. We're in about 160 countries around the world. We have 9,000 staff in 470 places, and we've expanded the scope of what we do now.
Your Excellency, could you tell us about your current visit here in Kuwait and the purpose and the timing of the visit?
Gladly. There's a real purpose for my being here. As you know, His Highness the Emir has convened two pledging conferences for Syria. I was at the conference this January, and after that he sent his emissaries to Geneva, where we're headquartered, to basically to pass out the amounts of funding that all of us were going to get to support the Syrian people suffering from the crisis. And I wanted to come as quickly as possible after that in order personally to express my appreciation in behalf of the organization and behalf of the Syrians we're helping for his generous support of the operation. I had an excellent meeting this morning. I was very warmly and cordially received. I had a chance to say how much it meant to us because the Emir I want to also thank him for being a global leader on humanitarian causes. He's put himself into that wholeheartedly. I wanted to thank him for the support he's given our organization, for the access and support he's given our Chief of Mission here and our office, and to thank him for both the first and the second pledging session. So that's exactly why I'm here. I took the opportunity to brief him on how we are operating, the activities we're doing to support about 1.3 million Syrians in difficulty. I talked to him about the 500,000 Syrians who we've taken from the border with Jordan to the refugee camps and so forth. And I also used the occasion to assure him about the accountability of the funding we've been given. That's also one of the reasons that I met with the Speaker of the Parliament, because they have the funding authority, and I want to make sure they understood we're very diligent in trying to use the money well.
Your Excellency, can we talk a little bit about the extent of cooperation and coordination between the State of Kuwait and the International Organization for Migration?
Indeed. No, we have an excellent relationship with the State of Kuwait at all levels, and with the people of Kuwait, I believe. We have a Chief of Mission who has been in Kuwait actually was born here and been here for many, many years, and who has, I think, a great credibility with the government and the people. We are expanding into other areas. We've tried to do a good deal in terms of training, capacity building, and trying to inform generally the authorities and the public of what it is that we do in supporting refugees, internally displaced persons, and trying to help those who get in difficulty along the migratory route. This means we're also helping out in terms of counter-trafficking, because every country has a problem that people are being trafficked into the country or citizens being trafficked out of the country. We do this around the world. And so that's sort of the way we're working now.
Your Excellency, you talked a little bit about some of the programs that the organization is working really hard in enhancing and developing the performance of those different sections that the organization has control over.
Exactly.
Can you talk a little bit about the programs that you are doing right now currently, and enhancing the performance of those agencies?
Exactly. Well, part of it, I think, is simply what I would call awareness training as to the various aspects of migration, the kinds of challenges and opportunities that migration represents. And I think it's important, we're trying to help people to understand that the term migration in a way is a much misunderstood term because it's being used in a classical sense. We're really talking about human mobility. Now, if I might just divert for a moment and say that there are more people on the move today than at any other time in recorded history. There are about 1 billion migrants today out of a world of 7 billion people. So 1 in 7 is a migrant.
Yes.
Now, this has resulted from a number of facts. First of all, demography. The 20th century was the first century in which the world's population quadrupled, increased fourfold. Therefore, there are more people there looking for jobs. It's been increased also by the fact that the industrial north is an aging society. The global south is a youthful society in need of jobs. So the world is really changing, and we're trying to do our best to help guide this process as much as we can with our many partners. So part of our training has to do with sensitivity training, but also with capacity building. How do you manage a proper migration program responsibly? How do you help people who are in difficulty? We're also in a period of unprecedented disasters. A lot of them are human-made, like Syria, Libya, Somalia, South Sudan, Central African Republic, and a lot of them are natural disasters like the earthquake in Haiti or the Haiyan typhoon in the Philippines, and some are climatically or environmentally caused. So we have to learn to deal with all of that and to try to help all of those who fall into difficulty.
If we talk a little bit about the migration, Kuwait has achieved a lot of, or made a lot of accomplishments in the area of the laborers' rights and fighting human traffic and so on by implementing different laws here in Kuwait.
Yes.
How do you evaluate those accomplishments, and how do you see that so far?
I think it's one of the areas in which we are trying to work the closest with your government in. It's extremely important that the laws of a country reflect a sensitivity to not only the need for labor, but that the human rights of the migrants are protected. So we've worked with all countries, and in particular with Kuwait, to develop law, help give them a comparison with other countries so that there are laws on the books that protect the human rights of migrants. Laws such as a law on trafficking in persons, to make that a criminal act, but to make sure that migrants who arrive without proper papers are not criminalized. So they may have committed a civil problem, but they're not criminals. And then we have a program that allows them to be brought home safely. And so we're also working to develop regional programs, and Kuwait is a member of what we call the Abu Dhabi Dialogue, which brings all the Gulf countries together to talk about how can you best deal with the very large dependency of the Gulf Cooperation Council on persons coming in from the outside. And I think that's working well. In fact, there is a meeting on May 21 and 22, and there is a ministerial in November for which I will be returning to Kuwait for. We have 15 of these regional dialogues around the world, but this is one of the most important ones. And Kuwait is now the chair in a very important position.
Your Excellency, do you have any other visions or ideas, for Kuwait to achieve that in a more rapid way, let's say?
Yeah.
To have those programs implemented soon.
Right. I think the chairmanship of Kuwait of the Abu Dhabi Dialogue will be very important. I know that the government plans to put forward some of its own ideas and perhaps initiatives in this regard. That will be important to watch what comes out of that. I think that at some point there may want to be a further, more structured dialogue between the Gulf Cooperation Council states and some of the Colombo process states from South Asia and Southeast Asia, from where most of the workers come. Yes. But I think the key to all of this is dialogue and understanding, because we have both irregular migrants, who one often calls illegal migrants, who don't have proper papers, and you have regular migrants who have a right to be in the country, to be working. And I think the key thing is to work in a way that the rights of both those groups is then fully protected under human rights laws.
Your Excellency, the organization has a big role in different countries all around the world. Could you tell us about the different roles that the agency is doing right now, and your contributions in different countries, whether in Africa, Asia, what have you?
Exactly. Well, in addition, the reason for which we were founded was basically to take refugees out of insecurity to a new life. We still do that. We spend about $125 million a year just moving people from insecurity to security. About 250,000 a year. We do all the medical exams for them and get them settled in their new life. So that is a traditional function that's continuing. The second function is that of addressing migrants caught in crisis, disasters, the ones that I mentioned. And there are more disasters today than, it's unprecedented in history to have this many disasters at one time. So we are basically working with our partners in all of these, but we're one of many players. We work in close partnership with the UN. Right now in Syria, we're working very closely with the Syrian Arab Red Crescent. We work with non-governmental organizations. We work with the academic world. So that's the second area, major area. We're doing a great deal in terms of helping migrants who fall on hard times, don't have a job, they've committed some local infraction and they need to return home. We encourage countries not to deport them, but to bring them to IOM, International Organization for Migration, to help bring them home under a more dignified regime where they don't get a negative stamp in their passport, they have a bit of money to start a new life, and so forth. So we think that is a more credible way of dealing with them. As you mentioned, we do a great deal in terms of capacity building, helping countries to develop laws, helping countries to develop authorities who are well informed about migration. So those are some of the things that we do. In addition, we hold a major conference every other year. 2 years ago, we held one on the diaspora. How can you help the diaspora? For example, Kuwaitis who go abroad to continue to contribute at home. Next year, we'll be holding one on migrants and cities. So we're engaged in the intellectual dialogue on migration. Migrants in cities, for example, what is the dynamic between a migrant and a city? Most migrants are going to urban areas.
Yes.
What are the pressures that migrants put on public services? And what are the pressures that the cities put on migrants? So we think that needs to be examined.
The organization is helping a lot of migrants all over the world. How do you see, or how do you evaluate the role of Kuwait, in that regard? Especially that Kuwait recently, like I mentioned earlier, hosted two conferences here in Kuwait to help the refugees in Syria. So how do you evaluate Kuwait's role in that regard in detail?
I'm very glad to see the leadership role that His Highness the Emir is taking. I congratulated him and thanked him this morning for his global leadership role in the humanitarian area. I think it's very important. And he came forward immediately in January, very generously, started off the pledging conference by offering $500 million. And from there, of course, others came in and following his example. That's very important. I think the dialogue that you're conducting in places like Geneva in the Human Rights Council in terms of the protection of the human rights of migrants, on which Kuwait and other Gulf countries so much depend, I think that dialogue on human rights needs to continue, and the dialogue with the countries from which they come, that's all very important. And the training that you mentioned at the outset, continue to do the training and the formation and the sensitivity that's required to make sure that this works well. Because I think if you look at the northern industrial countries, whether it's in Europe or the United States and Canada or Japan and Korea, these are all countries that are going to need more and more imported migrant talent. Otherwise, the economies will not be able to function properly and the skills simply won't be available. So I think in all of that, Kuwait will have a role to play. and in the Gulf Cooperation Council.
Your Excellency, our last question, do you have any coordination or cooperation with other organizations?
When I came into this office in 2008, I had 3 priorities. One of the most important ones was partnerships. We're built on partnership. Although we have 9,000 people in 470 places, and we've been doing this for 63 years, we are too small to do it alone. It would be foolish to try. So we're very closely, we're not part of the UN, but we're very closely linked with them. We're here in a UN building where we're doing this interview. They are our major partners. Our traditional partner, the UN High Commission for Refugees, is one of our closest partners. We are also very much involved with the non-governmental organizations, the academic world. So we are constantly looking for more partners. We have 155 member states, and we have about 100 observers. So we'll continue to press for more partnerships, because that's the smart way to do it.
Your Excellency, we thank you very much for allowing us this time to talk about this. And our dear viewers, thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you in future interviews. And we thank His Excellency, Ambassador William Swing, the Director General of the International Organization for Migration. Thank you very much.